came here to talk about Captain America. Well, that is exactly what we're going to do.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to our MCU character breakdown series. Today we're discussing Captain America. Captain America is the moral center of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's a man who is unflinching in his convictions, wise, honest, and a great leader. The MCU movies have been very good at presenting issues that challenge those convictions, most often ideas like freedom and individual rights. Recently, it became news that Chris Evans had a difficult time accepting the role of Steve Rogers, not only because it was a far bigger role than anything he had done before, but also because he knew it would be a challenge to put nuance into his portrayal of such a morally flawless person. It's safe to say that Evans nailed the role and made the character a fan favorite. Steve Rogers isn't like Batman or Iron Man. He doesn't have internal conflict or deep-rooted trauma that engages him with the viewer. Instead, it's how he answers difficult questions in ways that others don't. So let's take a look at Captain America. Captain America the First Avenger is not a complex movie, which in a way is perfect setup. Steve Rogers is not a complex man. He's someone who wants to do right no matter the cost. He's willing to pick fights against impossible odds and challenge authority to save the lives of his friends. His character in this movie is presented in a very black and white war. The Americans were good and Hydra was bad. There are very few moments in the movie where this was challenged, and in the end, Cap prevails, but at a great cost. This is also the movie where we're introduced to Peggy Carter, who is one of the only people Steve ever encounters that sees the world the way that he does. Throughout his entire journey, Peggy has been his foundation, and a reminder of the simplicity of the world he left behind. In the Avengers, we get to see Steve begin to adapt to the modern world. In the war, him and his team could act as an effective unit, but here we watch him grow into working with the other Avengers, where at first he's endearingly out of touch and simple. Even though Cap is physically less powerful than Tony or Thor, it's his experience and unifying presence that make him essential to the team. Here we also get to see the beginning of him and Tony's dynamic, two heroes with a very different idea of what heroism means. Even though they both have big lessons to learn, it's thrilling when they fight together, with Tony making the sacrifice play Cap didn't think he could. Next is what is probably Cap's most important movie, The Winter Soldier. In Avengers, the threat was a radical alien and his army from another galaxy, but here the threat is an institution that Cap had grown to trust. Nick Fury, who was the first person he met from the modern world, is sold on the idea of Project Insight, which Cap isn't a fan of. The argument between giving up freedom for security or giving up security for freedom is brought up a lot, and it's interesting to watch Cap disagree with Fury, who is essentially his superior when Loki invaded. Even though we got tastes of his independence in Avengers, this is the movie where we watch Steve transition from being a soldier who takes orders into a leader who gives them. Sam Wilson is introduced in this movie, forming one of the greatest friendships in the entire franchise, whose military experience and sense of humor gives Steve someone in the present day he can fully relate to. Having Bucky be the brainwashed assassin adds another dimension to what's already become impossible odds. Steve never hesitates to sacrifice his own safety to rescue his friend. In Age of Ultron, Cap has a central presence within the Avengers. He's a better fighter and is more comfortable calling the shots. The team has become an established unit, mopping up what's left of Hydra in search for Loki's scepter. When him and Tony clash again, it's because Tony is working to hand off the responsibility of protecting the planet to Ultron, where Steve is always willing to continue the fight. By the end of the movie, Steve is ushering in and training a new group of Avengers to do just that. Captain America Civil War presents possibly the most nuanced challenge Cap ever faces, the Sokovia Accords. Him and Tony's difference come to a head when Tony is all in on accepting governmental oversight, which Cap sees as surrendering the Avengers' right to autonomy. Cap understands that there are prices to pay when fighting a war, where Tony, fresh off the Ultron debacle, is happy to accept limitations. At the funeral for Peggy Carter, Cap's convictions are reinforced with the assertion to plant himself like a tree, in a situation where he knows he's right. Bucky is back in the ring, and Cap's devotion to his troublesome friend only confuses matters further. Throughout the entire movie, Cap and Tony are strained to their fullest, having their friends hurt and romances torn away. In the end, it's keeping the secret of Tony's parents that is Cap's biggest mistake and destroys their friendship. Captain America doesn't play a huge part in Infinity War, rescuing the Vision and Scarlet Witch and then traveling to Wakanda to battle Thanos' forces. But what he lacks in screen time, he makes up for in a commanding presence. Every time we see Cap, especially in his epic introduction, you feel a little safer, which is an incredible testament to what Marvel Studios have done with the character. At first a scrawny kid from Brooklyn, Cap has journeyed from being an American icon to a war hero to an Avenger, and an Avenger to a leader in the fight against Thanos. Chris Evans and the Russo brothers have added so much insight to make a difficult character to bring to life feel real and honest, and it's especially exciting to see what Endgame has in store for Steve Rogers as the completion of his arc. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and tell us in the comments what your favorite Captain America costume is. I know there's a big debate about that. Follow us on Twitter at Nerd Crew Podcast, and be sure not to miss Andy's recap of Thor on the road to Endgame.